Good morning, sewing folks. I was in the mood to make a cute little modern day dress, so in a fit of contradictory pattern buying shenanigans, I ended up getting a Butterick vintage 50s pattern, pattern 6018. It's a cute little day dress with sleeves and a fold back lapel on option A, or a sweet heart-shaped neckline for option B. Inside the pattern envelope, we've got the pattern pieces on the super thin tissue paper. Rather than cut out these pieces, I am instead going to trace them out onto some brown butcher paper. The benefit here is I won't lose the multiple size options, and I'm less likely to lose individual pieces of the pattern, and I'll have a sturdier pattern to use when I'm tracing out and cutting out my fabric. When tracing, be careful not to only trace out the outline, but also all the little marks that you're going to need later to correctly match up your pattern pieces to each other, and the information on the pattern that tells you how many pieces to cut out, what the grain line is, and such. My pattern pieces are all marked and cut out, and the original thin pattern has been refolded and returned to the envelope. I'm making a hopefully wearable mock-up out of this red and green plaid cotton fabric. The fabric is maybe a little bit thin for this style of dress, but it's just a mock-up. It's fine. As I finish each piece, I like to fold it up inside itself or pin the paper to the fabric so I don't get confused by similar looking pattern pieces, especially the skirt in this particular pattern. My main dress fabric is all done, so I'm cutting out the contrasting cuff and lapel fabric from this white cotton. I recommend that if you choose a light collar lining like I have here to go with your dark main fabric, you should go for a really very opaque fabric. Mine ended up being just a little too sheer. All of the pattern pieces that you see here will also be interfaced with fusible interfacing. I didn't film that step, so just imagine me doing exactly what you see here twice, then ironing those pieces together. The bodice front and back piece both have darts, so I'm marking them with pins and then sewing the darts before moving on to bodice assembly. The two front pieces now get joined together at the center front seam, taking care not to sew past the point indicated on the pattern piece. I recommend ironing the darts out after sewing to smooth out all the points. So guess what I just discovered? Right here, it says center back on fold. And of course, what I did was cut that. So I had to sew it up again with a very narrow, tiny seam allowance and zigzagged it to hopefully keep it in place. So now it's one piece again like it was supposed to be from the beginning. Hopefully it all works out. I would normally just cut a new back, but I don't have any more fabric. This is it. So I have to make it work. As per my instruction sheet here, I have pinned the contrasting collar fabric into place, and I'm going to sew it, then I'm going to flip it right side out, taking care to poke out all the pointy lapel corners. Some hand stitching will keep the facing down so it doesn't pop up every time I put the dress on or rewash it. Time for the sleeve cuffs. See the shiny part here? This is the fusible interfacing, and that will help keep the cuff stiff. Unfortunately, it is kind of rubbery, and therefore it really does not want to easily slide through the sewing machine. So I'm using the paper part of the interface backing to help the rubbery interfacing slide easily through the feed dogs and presser foot. After sewing, the paper is now perforated and is really easy to rip away. Once the cuffs are assembled, they are sewn to the bottom of the sleeves on one side, and then the raw edges are all tucked up into the cuff, and the remaining open cuff seam is hand sewn into place. The sleeves are finished and ready to be carefully pinned and then sewn into the arm side of the bodice. Unfortunately, I cleverly managed to get part of the sleeve stuck into the machine as I was sewing, so I had to unpick this little blob part and then try it again. Sometimes it seems like no project is properly complete until you've had to pick apart at least one seam and resew it. The bodice is done enough to try on, and it's looking pretty darn cute. The side is open where I will sew in a zipper later, and it might need to be taken in a little bit at the underbust. The collar is huge, but kinda cute, and the cuffs are a really fun little detail in this pattern. Time for the second half of the dress, the skirt. Nothing terribly exciting or tricky here, other than I needed to make sure I remembered which side to leave open for the zipper. The assemble skirt is attached to the bodice, and then we're back to the try it on step. I'm pretty darn sure it's too big at this point, and I'm starting to really not love the collar. It feels a little bit too big and Jetsons-y. Let's finish the zipper before we make any changes though, because maybe it'll look better once that seam is closed. Look at this perfectly normal side seam. There's definitely nothing weird here. Oh wait, haha, it's a zipper. I don't normally sew invisible zippers very often, so it's really exciting, almost magical when I do. The skirt is definitely way too long, so I went ahead and cut off 6 inches at the hem all the way around, and now I'm sewing the hem with a quick machine top stitch. Sewing a hem this way is quick and easy without the pins, but it can lead to unsightly wrinkles in the hem, especially after it's been washed. For the actual final dress, I would want to pin the hem in carefully before sewing, and maybe even consider hand sewing for more control and precision. The dress is technically done at this point, but having tried it on with a zipper, I'm thinking it needs to be taken in a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and pick apart the waist seam, and then the 3 front seams are where I'm going to take out a little bit over half an inch or so on each seam. I could have taken out a little more, but I didn't want to go overboard. Yet again, I have messed up and sewn a little bit of fabric that I shouldn't have. Let's go ahead and unpick that and re-sew it up again correctly. There we go, looking much better now. Although the tightening in the front has revealed that the torso is a little too long in the back. That's what's causing that kind of big wrinkle in the back at my waist. I bought some little white buttons for the front of the bodice. They're completely non-functional, but pretty cute. When sewing them, I don't have to worry about them being strong enough to stand up to years of buttoning and unbuttoning and washing. They just need to be sewn on enough to stick on, again, in a purely non-functional way. For what is essentially a mock-up, I ended up with a fairly wearable dress. I don't know that I would have purchased a maroon plaid dress, but now that I have it, I think it's going to make a pretty cute, like, Christmas holiday party dress. Hopefully that was helpful to those of you thinking about making your own dresses from a store-bought pattern. It does take some time and you might make some mistakes like I did, but it can be a lot of fun learning to make clothes for yourself. Until next time, good night everybody!